There's a new kid in town.
And he's lying in the manger down the road.
Oh, I actually thought...
There's a new kid in town.
I thought it was down in Bethlehem. I didn't know it was down
Oh,
the
no,
road.
that happens.
Okay.
Oh, it's like,
okay.
There's a new kid in town here in Bethlehem.
I can't. I can't. Oh, God.
But on the whole, I've been a saint to those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello, and welcome to Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I'm Connor Perkins.
And I'm Caroline Ameti.
Welcome to any new listeners. It's great having you here with us. And welcome back to any old listeners. We're so glad that you joined us again. Please remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way, all of our new episodes download right to your device, including any bonus episodes, which may or may not be coming out this week. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And also, please remember, if you liked what you heard, leave a rating and a review. This helps other people find the podcast. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to let us know that we're doing the things that you want us to do. So thank you in advance for taking the time to 15 seconds to just tap 5 stars and leave a little comment.
Before we get into some Disney news, I would also like to take a moment, speaking of some really kind things, that people have done for us. Now that it's the end of the year, we just want to take a moment and express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has donated to the podcast this year. Oh my goodness, it means so much to us. It's so generous of you. So let's just read off some names of our fabulous donors, and we are applauding for you. So we have Alicia, Rachel, Alicia again, another Alicia, Lisa, Anne, Jacqueline, Kim, Gabby, Lovely Lockett, what a cool username, Christopher, and Joseph. We want to thank you all so much for contributing this year. Oh my gosh, we love you. And Connor has 2 very special donors to talk about as well.
Yeah, I also want to give a special thank you to Lauren and Aaron, who they have been monthly subscribers to the podcast. So they give a donation every month. And truly, we would not be able to keep this up without the 2 of you. And we're really without anyone who's donated. So thank you all so much from the bottom of our hearts. We really, really appreciate everything.
So lovely. We love you all so much. And then on that note, let's switch it up a little, shall we? Connor, what's new in Disney news?
Gasp! You asked me.
It's your moment.
I have a couple things that have happened. So one of the cool things that happened is Disney dropped a teaser image of their new animated film that's coming next November, Strange World. And this is written and co-directed by Qui Nguyen, who is a renowned playwright, wrote Raya and the Last Dragon. But if you are a theater geek out there and your high school or your college or you've seen a production of She Kills Monsters, it's the same Qui Nguyen. So
Yay.
That's really exciting. The description is it's uncharted and treacherous lands where fantastic creatures await. So maybe everything that Onward was supposed to be. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Maybe the Animal Kingdom expansion that we always deserved.
I really want Kumandra, though. I want Kumandra.
Right. Yes,
I'm holding out for Kumandra. But
yeah.
Qui Nguyen, in terms of world building, is exactly who we need. So I'm excited to see what else he has to offer. Some other announcements that are in the parks related stuff. So Disneyland had some announcements of things that are returning for the spring of 2022, including the Main Street Electrical Parade, Fantasmic, Disneyland Forever Fireworks, and World of Color. There are videos of the lagoon filling back up with water
Yay.
so that they can start beginning the process of getting World of Color ready to go, which makes me so happy.
Nature is healing.
I've never seen it in person, but God almighty, one day.
I'm just putting it out there, 2022.
All right.
We're going to get you out there.
All right.
2022.
If the world doesn't
It's the
end.
year.
Don't say it's the year, because that'll curse it. It
Yeah.
will definitively won't be the year.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Well, Connor let me know. I truly did not know this until a few moments ago, but Connor told me that Encanto will be dropping on Disney Plus on Christmas Eve for free.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
For free.
I'm so
Happy
excited.
birthday, Caroline.
Yeah, really. It feels like that because I've been feeling so left out of everything that has to do with Encanto because I just I'm not going to the movies right now. So I can't wait to watch that. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we've also got we got some more looks at Galactic Star Cruiser, some of the training videos that are
and people are
happening.
canceling their reservations. It's not good. It's not good.
It's not good. Oh,
So we would
God.
like to take this opportunity to say to anyone from the Walt Disney Company listening, we will attend
if you would
invite
like,
us.
if you'd like to gift us your reservation, send it to us.
We will
Reach out
we
to
will
pooranfortunatepodcast@gmail.com.
vlog the whole thing. We will make it worth your while.
Oh my God. Ugh.
Let's make that our 2022 goal.
Yeah.
Let's somehow get ourselves, not with our own money, on the Galactic Star Cruiser.
All right.
That would be so. Me and you on the Star Cruiser for a weekend.
Can you imagine?
Oh, God.
Alrighty. Well, folks, let's get into the episode. We are back to the beginning of another cycle. This is our Rant and Rave episode. So, because we're getting so close to the Christmas holiday, we have decided to lean into the spirit of the season a little bit with this episode. And we are doing a Rant and Rave episode that is themed around depictions of Santa in Disney films. So Caroline has the rant this week. I have the rave this week. So Caroline's going to talk to you about a depiction of Santa that she does not care for. And I disagree with, but I'm gonna give you a depiction of Santa that is really awesome and that I think is amazing. So, without further ado, Caroline, would you like to plunge a stake of holly right through my heart?
I'm sorry. It's terrible. I have to be like the one with the rant on the Christmas episode, but somebody had to do it.
You Scrooge.
This has been a long time coming, though. This has been a long time coming.
No,
but I think this is going to be interesting. So I am going to rant about 2019's Noelle.
God,
Okay.
no. If you recall last year in our Christmas bonus episode, Caroline spent one of her wishes to eliminate this movie from existence. So let's not forget that that's what she decided to spend her energy on.
Yes, and then I also chose to eliminate Noelle from existence in our Goodbye So Soon episode.
Evil.
So before I give everybody some background info on Noelle, I have a little Christmas gift for Connor.
Did you watch it again? You loved it?
It's a little mini rant within a rant.
Okay.
And this is a rant against myself.
Go in, bitch.
I have to say, the first time I watched Noelle, I truly despised it. That's putting it lightly. My family and I almost turned it off after the first 10 minutes. And while I know why we didn't like it, and I'll explore those things, I want to take this moment to say I am formally rescinding my previously planned rant. Rather than ranting about Noelle as a film in general, I want to focus on why this specific Santa-related story, a very strong idea, deserved better. Maybe age and this godforsaken pandemic that never ends have softened me a little bit. But I've come to see that this film is harmless, and I should not have leveled my hatred with that I have for Brave. I was a Scrooge, and I'm sorry.
A Christmas miracle.
I would still eliminate Noelle in that game from the 2019
Yeah,
category.
of course.
Okay. I do apologize for all the slander, but I will not apologize for wanting more from a female Santa Christmas movie.
Did you cry?
I got choked up.
Yes. Oh my God.
I truly did.
Where did you get choked up in Noelle? At the at the shelter.
All right, I don't feel that way about it at the shelter, but but I have things to say about that. I have things to say about that moment.
Or also the moment when Polly's like, "Can you see love?"
Oh,
Like the love that you feel for I was like,
all right, I'm not on your level here. Don't get it
okay,
twisted.
shut up. Okay, fine.
All right. So before I go any further, let me just give you some basic information on Noelle. So Noelle was released on November 12th, 2019, the day that Disney Plus had its launch. It is directed and written by Mark Lawrence, who also did Miss Congeniality. The producer is Suzanne Todd. And the movie stars Anna Kendrick as Noelle Kringle, Bill Hader as Nick Kringle, Shirley MacLaine as Elf Polly, Kingsley Ben-Adir as Jake, Billy Eichner as Gabriel Kringle, Mikhail Smedley as Alex, Julia Haggerty as Mrs. Kringle, and much more. I could not find a budget for this, interestingly. I don't know, but it has a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 57% audience score and a 6.3 on IMDb. The reviews were pretty middling, I would say, but one from Variety said, and I feel like it kind of sums it up well, whatever your idea of a sentimental connect-the-dots Christmas comedy is, this is sub that.
Oh.
I kind of agree.
Oh, no.
Also, I want to move along a little, so I pulled this summary is just a quick pull from, I want to say Rotten Tomatoes. So, Kris Kringle's daughter is full of Christmas spirit, but wishes she could do something important like her brother Nick, who will take over for their father this Christmas. When Nick is about to crumble like a gingerbread cookie from all the pressure, Noelle suggests he take a break and get away. But when he doesn't return, Noelle must find her brother and bring him back in time to save Christmas. So, we're focusing a bit here on this portrayal of Santa Claus. I will try not to go off the rails too much and rail about the movie. I'm going to control myself. So, I wanted to take this from the perspective of the lore of the North Pole specifically. That plays the North Pole. I mean, in any Santa movie, for sure, the North Pole plays a big part. But I feel like it was like a major player in this. So, I want to explore a little bit of the lore of the North Pole and how this movie handles it. So, how did Santa, as we know him, end up in the North Pole? Why did Santa live in the North Pole? So, here's a little bit of the history. So, in general, obviously we know Santa Claus came from St. Nicholas. So, St. Nicholas was a 4th century bishop who lived in what is modern-day Turkey and had a reputation for gift-giving and charity. Then, Sinterklaas is the Dutch December 6th celebration of St. Nicholas, and through several American and British works like A Christmas Carol from 1843 and the poem Old Santa Claus with Much Delight from 1821, these created the character of St. Nick as we know it now and joined his story with the celebration of Christmas. Santa's home base became the North Pole most likely thanks to American cartoonist Thomas Nast, who drew Christmas cartoons for Harper's Weekly magazine from 1863 to 1886, and one of them featured a village called Santa Clausville, NP, with NP meaning North Pole. So why would he have chosen the North Pole? The best guess is that because in the 1840s and 50s, the Arctic had become a mythical place, thanks to a lot of publicized expeditions to the area happening for the first time, and it had been largely unexplored up until that point, so there was a lot of mystery surrounding it. And although who the first lander at the North Pole is disputed, it was likely not reached until around 1909, early 1900s, so it was very open to imagination and myth. Then, the popular Clement Clarke Moore 1823, The Night Before Christmas, also depicted Santa flying in a magic sleigh led by reindeer, who are native to the Arctic. So that's probably how that all came together to place Santa in the North Pole, along with Christmas snow being connected. What's snowier than the Arctic? So let's start here with something that doesn't really feel magical or special in Noelle, which is this version of the North Pole. First of all, there isn't anything particularly magical or mythical about it, but I also understand that a lot of modern Santa-focused films play on the North Pole being sort of a business-driven factory sort of setting, which can be done to delightful effect, like in Prep and Landing. Mm-hmm. Please see our Christmas-focused episode from last season. But even this approach to the North Pole in this film feels unspecific to me and not a lot of fun. First of all, one holdover from my first viewing of the film is my hatred for the very contrived, like, oh my garland type phrases that are like supposed to be funny and they make me cringe.
Oh my God, I
still do
love
not like
those.
that.
Oh my
God.
garland.
Oh my gosh, no. But I digress.
Oh, I love it.
So, like, let's take the sled, for example. So, it's supposed to be a high-tech sled. I understand the idea of it. It's fun. But then when you look at the detail of it, the kitsch of it, of like the speedometers pointing to like very far down or naughty and nice, and the screen showing how fast you're going. I mean, it's pointless. Like, none of it has any, it's just like, it has no meaning. So this is supposed to be a high-tech North Pole, but the tech of the sled has no meaning. It's very generic. I feel like nobody put any thought into it.
I love the incandescent bulbs, though.
All right. I'll give you that.
We love an exposed filament.
He does love that. If you were a household item, that's what you would be.
Probably.
Anyway.
I have 2 above my bed right now and
Yeah.
1 next to it.
Oh, God. So, yeah, that part of it to me just feels like generic Christmas silliness that isn't grounded in this specific world that we're in right now. Also, and this is the main point for me,
Okay.
the people in the North Pole are assholes.
Yeah.
First of all, like, who are they really? Like, are they all elves? The tone of their costuming wasn't very clear, which really reflected for me the overall lack of an aesthetic for this version of the North Pole. I didn't really understand who anybody was. I didn't understand what the vibe was. I didn't get it. But anyway, everyone in the North Pole immediately blames Noelle for Nick leaving as if he is not a grown man who makes his own decisions. And these are the people who live in the place where Santa chooses who's naughty and who is nice? No. No, thank you.
Jesus.
They all suck. Every time an individual North Polar was introduced, I didn't like them. They all completely turned on Noelle. There's no Kringle family loyalty whatsoever. It feels like they are ready to backstab you at any moment. We have the Council of All Male Elders. I mean, it changes at the end, but we don't like. I would never want to live in this North Pole. I would never want to visit it. It doesn't seem fun. It doesn't seem nice, which is a little bit of an oxymoron.
But I also love her little boots that you click and then they become skates. That's fun.
You know what? So this leads me to the rules of this North Pole, which are unclear and then lead to other inconsistencies in this film. So this North Pole is very modernized, like I said. I would wager, therefore, that Noelle has heard of yoga pants before. So when she's like, doesn't understand that when she's in the real world, it makes no sense. This North Pole also has restaurants. We've seen her at one. So then the gag of Noelle being in Arizona and taking a drink off the waitress's tray as if it was for her, it makes absolutely no sense. Noelle is not Buddy the elf. I understand that she's a little sheltered, she's not from our world, but her North Pole is not Buddy the elf's North Pole.
But could that also be a comment on her privilege? Because that's another like thing of her storyline is that
yeah,
like,
but she knows to
Kringle,
order at a
she walks
restaurant.
around like she's but she can like kind of do whatever she wants, and like part of her journey is to like humble herself a bit.
But that's the thing.
I'm trying.
No, they want that to be her journey, but they don't go hard enough into that either. So I don't believe that she would be that privileged that she would do that. And I also don't want her to be that person. Like I said, like Buddy the Elf's North Pole allows him to remain completely naive. Hers is not the same. So no, that moment does not work. It's not funny.
My God.
Also, speaking of the way that they're just mistreating Noelle, this is the thing. Like, I'm not totally railing. Like, I want Noelle to be great. I think she's a great character. I like her. So, not only because of, like, North Pole technology, like the sled GPS, but also because of the fact that Noelle is naturally gifted with Santa abilities. She would know how to say Arizona. So, once again, the gag of her saying it wrong, it falls flat. That's not who she is. She is meant to be Santa. She can already understand other languages. She would know how to say Arizona, not to mention the fact that the sled says it for her. But also she knows how to say Phoenix, but she doesn't know how to say Arizona. It's just lazy. It's so lazy. And it's like, and I can't stand when we're trying to make this character, this female character, a little ditzy when she's other things. She's flawed in other ways, but she's not a ditz. And that really annoys me. Ugh. Okay.
I didn't think that was like a comment on her ditziness. I thought that was part of the fun of her being in the North Pole person in the real world.
Then it's lazy. Then it's pure lazy because she is aware of the real world as well.
But she would know what a phoenix was because mythology, and she's a mythical person. But she wouldn't know what a
But she can
Arizona
speak
is.
other languages, but she doesn't know how to say Arizona. I literally don't buy that at all. No. And she's meant to be Santa. She would know.
Well, she doesn't know that she's meant. Maybe she's denying that part of herself and not denying it. She doesn't know the name, how to pronounce the name of Arizona. Jesus, God help me.
Listen, this
is a bad
idea. This could have been worse for you.
Idea.
I need you to be grateful right now because this could have been worse.
Abort the episode, folks. This is the end. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, gosh. Okay. The magical abilities of Santa in this film also didn't live up to the really great potential that was established of Santa lore. No. I love Santa being able to speak any language. But again, like, what are the rules of this ability? Does anyone who's born into the Kringle family line have it? Nick does not have that ability, but we aren't told if that's like a lack of magic, if Santas are only a special few with the correct abilities. We haven't established if one person in a family line is chosen to have the Santa abilities. That whole thing is not fleshed out. And it's a really cool idea. Also, the idea of a twinkle, really lovely. It gets mentioned once, though, and then we see Noelle get the twinkle in her eye at the end of the film, long after she has become Santa. I wish we had gotten more specific about concepts like the twinkle, concepts that are associated with Santa lore that we know, that these films are really here to fill in the details of. I did not learn anything more about that concept, and it's a fun and interesting concept. Ultimately, even Noelle becoming Santa felt unspecific to me. So the suit fits you when you fit it. So the suit fits her after she delivers toys to the shelter and speaks with the kids there, and they recognize her as Santa. It affected me emotionally because it's a manipulative moment. Like, they're small children saying hi to Santa. Of course, I'm going to want to cry. But it's not because it's a fully climactic plot point. I don't understand.
Incorrect.
No. I do not understand exactly why the suit finally fit her. She had been making children's days long before that night. I wish the story had been that she had it in her all along, not that she had something more that she had to earn, which I don't even understand what it is. What did she earn?
No, she did. No, it wasn't that she earned anything. It was that she believed that she was Santa. She believed in herself in that moment because
But I didn't see her believe in herself.
Yes, she did.
I didn't see it.
Then you weren't looking and you had your eyes closed and you turned the other
I
way.
was looking.
No, because the whole thing is she keeps trying to make Nick be Santa.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's denying, her. That's why the suit doesn't fit her. And then once she's going out there, she's just, like, hit with the world and she's feeling the pressure of, like, I wasn't the person who everyone was expecting to be Santa. Everything's resting on me. And she's, like, not believing in herself and she's not getting the, like, morale boost that she needs. And then she gets into that shelter and she sees a kid and that kid says, "Merry Christmas, Santa," and calls her Santa and sees that she is Santa because Santa doesn't have to look a certain way or be a certain person that we've all come up with in our heads. Santa is the spirit of what she brings. And when she has that moment with the kid and has that moment with all the people in the shelter who are calling her Santa, it gives her the confidence to be like, no, I am Santa. I'm owning this. And then the suit fits. That's that moment.
No.
It's very clear. It's very clear.
No, because her trajectory in the story, then they needed to be so much more clear of, okay, her trajectory is going to be,
how?
I'm trying to make Nick Santa. I am not Santa. It's Nick's job. That's not what she's doing. No.
Does.
She really, she's trying to get him back.
She's pushing him down the chimney.
No.
She's like training him. She's like trying to get him to go down the chimney. She's working with him. She goes to get him. She's like, you have to come back because you have to be Santa. That's literally what's happening the entire movie.
And then she makes the speech and they're like, you're Santa. And she's like, okay, sure, yeah.
She was not sure, yeah. She was intimidated because it was
You cannot sit here and tell me they did a good job of that because they didn't. They did not make that. That is so
Nick's idea.
No, that is so muddied. It is so muddy. It is not clear at all. And this is a 100-minute family movie, and somehow that was muddied, and that's the story of the movie. No,
it was very clear.
No,
it was very
not.
Clear.
I understand I sound grinchy picking apart a 100-minute straight-to-streaming family Christmas movie, but it's because the potential is there in this premise. And the first time we have a female Santa and send the message that sends, it matters, and it should be done well. So it's like, what, again, that ties into the next thing I was going to say. What is Noelle's through line? Okay, so they try to force this thing of Noelle being a spoiled princess and needing to clean up her own mess. So number one, if you're going to argue that the journey is her being like, Nick is supposed to be Santa, I'm not Santa, this edition has already muddied that through line. But I also don't get that from her. She always spreads Christmas cheer, but she doesn't come across as selfish to me. So she gets put on this redemption trajectory that just like isn't necessary. If we wanted that to be the story of someone learning so much to think outside of themselves that they can become Santa, then we needed to start off with a Noelle who's actually selfish. She's a little immature, I guess, but I find her to be generally pretty helpful. And she loves presents. Is that a crime? Like, we're trying to villainize someone who's not a villain. And like someone being like, Polly tells her, oh, you have to learn to clean up your own messes. I don't know. She jumps pretty quickly into being like, oh my God, Nick is gone. I've got to go find him. There's not a lot of resistance there. She's a good person. So that was like, that was unclear to me as well. And I love the theme of her being the one destined to be Santa and her coming into her birthright. But that could have just been streamlined. It's a short movie. Like, there were just too many things we were trying to make her be, and it needed to be simpler. And she's not spoiled and, like, selfish at all.
I thought the overall trajectory for her character was her figuring out what her purpose was around Christmas. Because it all starts in that first scene when she's as a kid, and she's like, Nick's supposed to be Santa. You're Santa. What am I supposed to do? And he's
like that.
You make really great Christmas cards. And so I feel like all of this is figuring out what her purpose is.
I love that.
And I feel like all of these themes play into it.
That's all it should have been. It should have been like, what is my purpose? I've been kind of relegated to this part of Christmas. I feel like I want more. We can get rid of like, oh, you're also like a little princess who needs to like stop being so selfish. I don't understand that. So to me then, I don't know, the story that this ends up telling is that a woman can be Santa, and then she'll like make a lot of mistakes and a lot of blunders, which is disappointing. I don't know. That's not really what I want from a Christmas movie. I wish women had written and directed this because I know it would have been different. It feels like overall this was building to a really cool place. Like I said, it's a fantastic premise. If you told me Disney was making a Christmas movie about a woman who was the daughter of an only male line of Santas, I'm totally sold. But I feel like this film got distracted from this simple but very meaningful and evocative premise. You can feel it also in the jokes that just are not earned. Like, randomly, like, Nick makes this, she's, gearing up to be Santa her first time. She's getting in the sled, and Nick makes some lame joke about reindeer having ticks. And I'm like, why did we add that in? Like, Nick doesn't disdain the North Pole and being Santa as a whole. He's just not good at it. It's not his calling. It's just like things were thrown in there. And like, if Bill Hader can't make it funny, it's not funny because Bill Hader is hilarious.
I thought it was funny.
Get out of here.
I thought it was funny.
Get out of here. Helen from the Mall is a ripoff of Paulette from Legally Blonde. And this movie in general is a ripoff of Elf. But they don't live in the same world. So then the humor doesn't work because that North Pole and Buddy and Noelle, they are not the same. So they need different kinds of humor, and they were trying to force elf-type humor into this, and it didn't work. So Disney originally planned to release this theatrically, and though I'm sure the decision to pull it had a lot to do with making Disney Plus enticing, I also wonder if they could feel that this movie just like didn't have theatrical release potential. The marketing was also misleading. It came off to me. I remember when I saw the first posters for this, we see Anna Kendrick and Bill Hader. And I'm like, okay, they are going to haphazardly, they're siblings, and they're going to haphazardly save Christmas. Once again, I'm in. That sounds like it would be a barrel of laughs. Their faces on the poster hint at a Christmas comedy. And that wasn't the story being told here. So I just know that it's like no one was 100% clear on what story was being told in this film. Ultimately, I don't think anyone was really thinking about what's the movie's goal. If it's just to be a fun Christmas movie, that's fair. But there just wasn't enough. There was not nearly enough fun factor in this. No.
I thought it was so much fun.
Get out of here. But before I get too far, let me just bring it back to the portrayal of Santa here, just to close it out. I didn't feel that anything was made more meaningful, layered, textured, or even enjoyable about Santa through this film. I wasn't fed anything new, or I didn't learn anything new about Santa. I'm glad that Santa can be a female. You would think that for someone like me especially, this story would in some way make me feel more attached to the legend of Santa because I could kind of add this to the lore in my mind. But all I really felt from this movie was that the North Pole seemed like a shitty place to be. And I'm still not quite sure why Santa, whoever is taking on the job at the time, loves what he or she does, besides it being a family tradition and the family business and having maybe a general liking for spreading cheer. And at the end of the day, we make Santa focused, background of Santa, backstory of Santa Christmas movies to add something to the lore. And there were so many opportunities to do that here, and I just didn't think it really took any of them. And honestly, the premise of this film, I love it. So I want to redo. Bring Anna Kendrick back. I love her. I love her as Noelle. But this movie was just not it. No.
I disagree. Because it's not a background of Santa movie. It's a continuation. It's
right,
like
but
a
you have to
sequel
fill me
Santa.
into the world. And there was no world building here. It was all stuff ripped off from other movies.
Ripped off from other movies, or did those movies add it to the lore and then it's capitalizing off of that lore?
Okay, fine. Then what did Noelle add to it? Nothing.
That Santa is a role that can be extended to anyone. That is what I think
but not even anyone. And you have to be in the family.
It doesn't matter. You can be Santa regardless of your sex. I think
Sure,
that's something that
that's a great idea for the film, but I didn't walk away feeling empowered by that or excited by that at all.
You didn't?
And you would think I would. No, I really didn't.
I don't know. You gave me that caveat at the beginning of this. It felt like you gave me a hug, and then the rest of this rant was you just stabbing me repeatedly in the back.
I think you're bothered because some of it rings true to you, but
I concede like the North Pole is a shitty place in this
it's
one,
terrible.
but there are some structural thematic things, some representations of what Noelle stands for as a character that I think were abundantly clear, especially the climax. I don't know how you would make that climax any different.
It's so muddy. So muddy.
We will never agree on this.
Never, ever, never.
Put this down with Bernadette and Catherine Zeta.
And Merida. Yeah.
Woof. Is that the end?
That's the end. Merry Christmas.
Fucking hell, man. All right. So y'all just hopefully you felt that as hard as I felt that. I'm going to desperately try and bring things back up from there. And I'm going to do the rave.
I had to do the rant on Christmas. I mean, I was screwed. I was screwed.
All right, so I'm going to bring us out of the depths of Christmas hell that Caroline just plunged us into. And I'm going to lighten things up with a portrayal of Santa Claus that I think is particularly exceptional. And that is Tim Allen's portrayal of Santa in The Santa Claus. So I'll give you some background information about the movie. It's a Christmas classic. I probably doubt you're listening to this podcast if you haven't seen it already. But it was released November 11th, 1994. It was directed by John Pasquin, written by Leo Benvenuti and Steve Rudnick. The producers were Robert Newmeyer, Brian Riley, and Jeffrey Silver. And it stars, among others, Tim Allen as Scott Calvin / Santa Claus, Eric Lloyd as Charlie, Wendy Crewson as Laura, Judge Reinhold as Neil, David Krumholtz as Bernard, and many more. Fun fact about the casting, Tom Hanks was in consideration for the role of Santa
Oh.
Claus. I believe Michael Keaton was, Bill Murray. There were a lot of folks who were in
Wow.
consideration for that. And Patricia Clarkson was in consideration for the role of Laura,
I could
the
see that.
mom.
I could see that. Mhm.
Like, there's some really, really cool people who almost got cast in this film, which is exciting. The budget for this movie was $22 million.
Whoa.
The box office, $189.8 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. They
Whoa.
made some cash money
Oh
on
my
this.
God.
It has a 6.5 score on IMDb. It is 72% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And has a 65% audience score. A brief plot synopsis for you that I wrote as opposed to stealing it because
it wasn't worth my time at all.
So your plot synopsis, it's Christmas Eve and snarky divorced dad Scott Calvin spends the entire night disappointing his adorable son Charlie, who has the misfortune of spending Christmas with his father. But when Scott accidentally knocks a certain man in a red suit off of his roof, he inadvertently executes a contract to become the next Santa. With a year to get his affairs in order and his ex-wife's new husband pushing for a custody battle, Scott has to find a way to believe in himself or else doom all the children of the world to sadness and misery in a world where Santa Claus doesn't exist. And that's the Santa Claus. A little light for you. Now, because Caroline and I are exactly the same person, I also have some history about Santa Claus that's going to be relevant to some of what I'm talking about.
Oh my God, weird alerts.
So basically, I think what it all boils down to in Tim Allen's portrayal of Santa Claus and why this portrayal of Santa Claus is really amazing is how it actually does take the lore of Santa Claus and just consistently build on it, deepen it, and highlight parts of it. So
deepen, yes.
So I want to focus on Santa, just sort of like the legend and how we have come to know Santa Claus. So as Caroline mentioned, Santa Claus, as we know him, has evolved over the years, stemming from early stories and depictions of St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, Sinterklaas, Père Noël, even Odin in Norse mythology. And the image of Santa Claus that we know today was taken from that cartoon from Thomas Nast. It was actually in an issue of, it was January 3rd, 1863's issue of Harper's Weekly. And it depicted Santa in a sleigh pulled by reindeer dressed in an American flag because it was the Civil War. And it was like, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But his 1881 image of Santa is perhaps the most famous image of Santa. When you go and you're like, oh, what's the first image of Santa? This is the one that you see. And that depicts Santa as a jolly, plump man with a white beard holding a pipe and toys. But prior to the Nast images of Santa, an anonymous poem appeared in the Troy, New York Sentinel on December 23rd, 1823. And this poem was called A Visit from St. Nicholas, known today as The Night Before Christmas. So this poem, as Caroline mentioned, it was later claimed by Clement Clarke Moore. There's some dispute as to whether some other folks may have written it because it was claimed after some deaths. There's, you know, you can go into that. But it is being attributed to Clement Clarke Moore, and that has sort of become the modern foundation of sorts for the canon of Santa Claus. So in this publication, that's where we get descriptions of Santa as chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf with a beard as white as snow. We're also told about the 8 reindeer. We get their names, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen. That comes right from this poem. And also St. Nick's now famous manner of how he goes up the chimney with his, you know, finger next to his nose and a wink and he goes up. To be completely honest, we could do an entire series on the legends of Santa Claus because there's so much information out there. I thoroughly enjoy this lore. My dad even more so. He's probably geeking out right now listening to this episode. Hi, Dad. For now, I'm just going to leave my background there because these are the basics. These are the foundations that we need from which I'm going to argue how the Santa Claus works to perfect the lore of Santa Claus. So Santa in the film, I think Santa is all about creating Christmas magic while simultaneously making it believable. That's the challenge. That's what Santa is about. So striking this balance is really essential for any new addition to the Santa collection. And the Santa Claus hits this balance exactly right, possibly more than I would say any other Christmas film. I might be so bold as to say that.
I think I could get on board with that, yeah.
I think the only other one that I would hold in competition with this is Santa Claus is Coming to Town, the Rankin Bass Christmas special.
Oh.
So I want to sort of divide this up into Santa as a role versus Santa as a person and some other things. So Santa as a role versus him as a person, that is what's changing with this movie. It's a really important distinction that I think really helps deepen that lore of Santa. Santa is more importantly a job than a person, and that can be passed on from generation to generation. It's like a believable immortality, and that's something that the Santa Claus is one of the first movies to start taking this approach.
Yeah, Noelle owes this movie for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's super smart. Like, it not only captures the imagination of those who already believe, gives them something else to think about, but it starts creating a new what-if scenario for the people who are not a believer, where they're like, oh, I may not have considered this. Like, this is a possibility. It could be passed on. It's not just one person who lives forever. It's a job that lives on forever. And it pays respects to that original canon. There's like the line where Scott's in the North Pole for the first time and he's like, who's the head elf? And the elf is like, you are. And that brings things right back to the poem, The Night Before Christmas, where he's being referred to as a jolly old elf. So, you know, we've got that hearkening back to it. It does this also in the transformation of Scott Calvin over the course of the film. He, like anyone who would assume the role of Santa, physically transforms into the basic look of Santa that we've come to know around the world, which is from the Thomas Nast depiction. That Santa that he eventually comes into. If you look at the Thomas Nast depiction, that's the correlation there. His belly jiggles like a bowl full of jelly. His cheeks and nose, they get cherry red by the end. I've watched this movie a couple times this season so far, and I've also experimented with distance at which I watch this movie. When you make it to the end of the movie, really look at the makeup and the wigs and beard, like the full costume for Scott Calvin. It's really detailed and really well done. And you get the cherry red nose, you get the rosy cheeks from the descriptions from The Night Before Christmas, where that's where we're really pulling a lot of this from for the movie. And rightfully so, because they reference it. It's it's a thing that he reads to Charlie before sleep. But I think the other thing about Santa as a role versus Santa as a person is that it creates a reality that works with our own. So the fact that there are hard and fast binding rules to becoming Santa, and then processes and procedures in place for the position, that makes it more believable. It's something we can all relate to. We have jobs, we have rules that we have to follow. So seeing the similarities between the job of Santa and obligations in our own life, it blends our reality into Santa's, and it offers non-believers a new route to take that sort of leap of faith into believing, one that perhaps is not as far.
Yes. That's what Noelle does not do. I couldn't agree with you more.
I'm not going to comment about Noelle. I'm just going to keep this all focused on the Santa Claus.
The funny thing is every good thing you say about the Santa Claus, I'm like, yeah, that was missing.
Then I'm just going to leave it right here and I'm not going to say anything else. So the next sort of category I want to talk about in how the Santa Claus's depiction of Santa Claus is perfecting the lore is around Santa's magic. So for a character like Santa, who is so magical that the first question about him is whether or not he's real, to center a movie around the specific way in which someone becomes Santa and how they would operate gives us these explanations we crave without sacrificing any of the magic. We're not saying this isn't magic. Rather, we're saying this is how the magic works. And so that holds true to that seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing message of the film. You still have to take a leap of faith with this film. There still is magic, but we understand how the magic works a little bit more, and it's easier to believe. So some of the places where I think the magic is really exceptional, one of the first images that we get is the chimney scene of how Scott goes down the chimney, how the bag floats up, the bag magically refills with exactly the toys that need to be in this place. It gives us very, very clear, distinct ways in which the magic of Santa is working to make this night possible. And even the line where Charlie's sort of explaining how the chimney works to Neil, he says he turns into jello and the fireplace sort of appears. That's also, again, like a subtle nod to the night before Christmas. His belly's like a bowl full of jelly. It's like that. It's like a line from the poem. But to be able to give that explanation of like, how does Santa get into those houses where there isn't a chimney? Now we have an answer. It's still magical, but we have an answer for it. So the next part of the magic that I want to talk about, and I sort of touched on it before, is the appearance, the transformation of Santa Claus. So I think in seeing that a person doesn't have to look like Santa to begin with, but will slowly evolve into the persona, I think that's really important. That's really crucial to the magic, to help us buy into the immortality of it, where it's like, how do we have this image of this same person who keeps appearing? You grow into it. Like, as the card says, you abandon your previous identity and your name for Santa Claus. And here we're invited in on the process. It makes sense for Santa to have these magical powers because the process of becoming Santa is magical too. We see the slight changes. We're going on that journey. We see the white beard, the belly form, the inclination towards sweets, the jingle bell heartbeat, which is great. I think what really works is that it doesn't happen all at once, though. We get the little doses of magic spread out, which makes them all the more awe-inspiring, makes them more impressive, and frankly, realistic. It's easier to digest a little bit at a time. And for a viewer watching the movie, it's quite a feat to think about who Scott was on his first Christmas to who he is on the second Christmas. And we as an audience still inherently recognize him as the same person because we've gone on that journey with him. Like, that's a kind of magic all on its own. We've seen it happen. And in terms of creating magic that is believable, again, having those small doses, that's what makes it a bit easier to swallow. No, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens over time. Other bits of the magic that I think are really important in sort of like deepening are the interactions with people, how he, knows if you've been bad or good, that sort of thing. That is a trait that you begin to acquire as part of the transformation. The kids who start to instinctively know that he is Santa, who line up around him, start following him, things like that. I think that's spot on because part of the magic of Christmas, especially with kids, is that kids know Santa and they know that Santa is as much a feeling as it is a person. So to bring that in with Santa, that they can feel that this is Santa, even though he doesn't look the way that we're used to it, they can feel Santa around him. That is important magic that we're highlighting here. It's coming across extremely clear. And I think, again, works in conjunction with the lore that we're establishing in the movie, but also with the lore that we've been establishing for Santa Claus throughout history. And I'm going to cheat here for my last little bit of Christmas magic that I want to point out, because my absolute favorite depiction of Christmas magic in the Santa Claus actually happens in the Santa Claus 2. So if you haven't watched the Santa Claus 2, watch it. It's a good time. Is it as good as the first one?
It's a good sequel.
Nah, but it's a good sequel. It's solid.
Yeah.
In this one, Scott has to find a Mrs. Claus. So he has to get married before Christmas. Otherwise, he can't be Santa anymore. So he has to go back into the real world and start dating. And he starts to fall in love with this very stern principal at his son's school, where Charlie's also been a bit of a troublemaker. But on their date, he inadvertently invites himself to accompany the principal to a Christmas party for the faculty at the school. And everyone's not in a very cheerful Christmas spirit. It's not a good time. Everyone's kind of miserable. And Scott uses some of his Santa magic to do a secret Santa with everyone, where he brings out this bag full of presents, and inside the bag are presents for each of the different faculty members, and it is their favorite toy that they had growing up as a kid.
Oh my God, right.
That is easily the best example of Christmas magic in this series. It's extraordinary and exactly the kind of gift that Santa would give. It's not just something flashy or exciting, but something that means the most. Not just like means something, but means the most, and will bring out that sense of wonder in you, which you had as a kid. Because that's ultimately, I think, the purpose of Santa Claus, to bring that sense of wonder and awe in just the sheer goodwill of humankind. And that is exactly what this moment in the movie is doing. It is just a pure act of goodwill to just let all these faculty members who have had a rough year, who feel unappreciated, just play. Just let off steam, feel like they were kids again, and feel like they're seen. And that's what that moment is about. And so I will harp about that that moment, that scene, until the cows come home. And then the last thing I want to talk about in terms of deepening the lore and perfecting the lore of Santa Claus is the North Pole and the elves. So this is the depiction, hands down, the depiction of the North Pole that most closely resembles what I have always imagined. The production design for this film is exquisite. It's that Art Nouveau style. So it's all the like swirls, and it's very intricate. It's gold. There's serif fonts. There's jewel tones everywhere. It's everything to me. And I also think the witty plays on like Christmas colloquialisms are like they're there in this film, but at a different level. So like even with, say, Prep and Landing, where they have like the how are we going to get through this snow, laughing all the way, laughing, and like there's a partridge in a pear tree, like those sort of things, they're very easy, they're fun, but they're very easy, they're very accessible, and nothing is better or gives you a better sort of hook into the world of this movie than the Rose Suchek ladder. That moment of taking a Rose Suchek ladder and turning it to Rose Suchek ladder, that's the kind of thing where it's next level world building, where it takes an obscure but very easily identifiable Yuletide phrase and puts an immense amount of meaning on it and makes it feel special. It's that kind of attention to detail that makes you buy into the fact that this could actually be a real place, because they're looking that specifically at things. And these colloquialisms that they do, they don't hit you over the head with them. They come in and they go out. You notice them or you don't. They're there or they're not. And that's what I'm looking for. And I will also say, every year I put up a Christmas village, a Christmas garden with my family. And I've had a collection. It's from Department 56. If you know them, great. If you don't, whatever. My collection has always been Christmas in the City, because I love New York City and I love Christmas. But my dad, it's called the North Pole series. And it's all these beautiful, ornate porcelain houses that are inspired by the North Pole and imagined buildings that would be at the North Pole. And so I grew up seeing all of these houses out every Christmas. That's what got me into it as well. And when I watched the Santa Claus for the first time, it was like we were inside my dad's Christmas garden, because it's that same type of specificity. It's not a general wash of Christmas. It is specific Christmas, which I think I would argue very few Christmas movies actually do. A lot of movies will do like a huge amount of excitement to getting to the North Pole. And then once you get to the North Pole, it's like generic Christmas. Even The Polar Express, which is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Once you get to the North Pole, it's pretty generic Christmas. Even in Elf, it's specific Rankin Bass Christmas, but Rankin Bass Christmas is also kind of generic. This is one that's actually doing a lot. And then the last part I have to say are the elves. Now, do I necessarily believe that elves are only children? No, I think that they can go older than children. However, the costuming of these elves is spot on to what I would expect. It's intricate, it's detailed, it's timeless. There's mixtures of time periods. You've got like Renaissance, medieval hats happening along with like just different styles over the years, which it just feels perfect. But more so than that, the role of elves is what I like the most. Everyone has a very, very specific assignment. And it's not just everyone's working in the workshop. Everyone has very different specific work that they are required to do. And even a step beyond that, there are elves that are tasked with being in the human world to keep an eye on children and the events of what's happening in the real world, which that is how I have always imagined how Santa sees you when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake. He uses the elves to do that for you. My dad, I'm going to bring him up again, created a very, very vivid mythology of Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
And part of that mythology that he's created is that every kid is assigned an elf who watches over them for the course of their childhood until eventually they grow out of Santa Claus or don't need Santa Claus anymore, in the way that they have him as a child. And this was the first time I ever felt validation in the mythology that my dad had created, because here there were elves out among the children who could blend in, but like you see it happen like you see it even in the title cards when there are kids looking in the shop windows. You pass by one and they've got pointy ears, and if you blink you miss it. And then like at the end when they're like, let Santa go, there's actual kids out there, and there's also kids who have pointy ears. And then once Santa's freed, they sort of go their own separate way, because that's the role of elves. I have a lot of very strong opinions about Christmas,
but it's all
about
true.
the North Pole. And when a film does this the way the Santa Claus has, I will sing its praises until the cows come home. This is a film that takes magic and makes it real, makes it believable, allows you to buy into it, even if it has been a long time since you've last believed in Santa Claus. And that you can't put a price on in a Christmas movie. That is singular. That is seminal. That is perfect.
Yep.
So the Santa Claus, less about Tim Allen's actual performance, but really just like the role of what's created in the film.
Yeah.
And that's all I got to say about that.
When I was younger, when I started getting to the age where, some kids at school were saying stuff about Santa, I would turn to this and be like, no, there are, as like a nerdy kid, I'd be like, there are logical ways in which this works. So I know that they're wrong. Like this can work in this way, and this movie proved it.
It's brilliant because it's a movie about convincing people that Santa is real.
Yeah.
And so in that being the journey of the film, it convinces you as an audience member.
Yeah, it does.
Which it works on all these different levels. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Santa Claus. I can't go a Christmas season without watching it at least twice. Alrighty. So thanks for listening, folks. That's going to do it for our Christmas-themed Rant and Rave episode. If you enjoyed this very heated, very spirited, no pun intended, episode, please remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. Also, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and a review to help other people find the podcast. Again, this is one of the single best things you can do to help the podcast grow our community. Those reviews could be the difference between someone passing our podcast or hitting play, the difference between us showing up in a search result or not. It might seem like it's nothing, but it's everything to us. So please, if you could take the 10, 15 seconds it takes to do one of those, we would so appreciate it.
And while you're going and tapping on your phone, just tap follow on social media too. We are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and we are at Unfortunate Pod on Twitter. Definitely follow along on social media to let us know your Christmas movie opinions. I feel like episodes like these always get people talking, just like our unpopular opinions episode. So we would love to hear what you all think about this. So you can definitely let us know on social media. But if you want to have some even more in-depth discussions about the episodes, please join us in our private Facebook group, the Poor Unfortunate Fam. So we have a community of listeners on there, and we've gotten to know so many of you so much better through that group. We discuss the episodes, we share Disney news, we play games. it's a really wonderful and warm place to be. And we would really, really love to have you be a part of it. So come on over. I know Facebook is like kind of the worst, but it's a really nice corner of Facebook if there's one
it's
to
a
be
little
had.
protected. It's a little haven. Yeah. And then, as I always say, it does take us a little bit of money to keep the podcast up and running and coming to you all. Thank you again for everyone who has donated to the podcast thus far. We do have a PayPal account. We are accepting donations. You can find it in the episode description as well as in the website links on our social media accounts. Truly, anything that you have to spare, it goes a long way for us. You can make a $5 donation, $10, $20, more than that. You can make it one time. You can make it monthly like Lauren and Aaron. And it all just goes right back into the podcast. It's, just covers the basics and helps us continue to bring this content to you, keeping it free for the most part, ad-free when we can. We are looking for a couple more donors to, give a little bit before the end of the year. So if you are feeling that spirit of giving, feel free to lean into it and press another button on your phone. And we would really appreciate it. It truly does go a long way, and we don't take anything for granted. So thank you so much for considering that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. That's going to be it. We will see you all in the new year. This is going to be our last full episode for 2021. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break just to give us a chance to sort of catch our breath from all the content and give you all a chance to catch up if you're behind. So our next full episode will be January 17th. That's a Monday, of course. And we will see you all then. But until next time, happy holidays and Beluga Savruga.